My husband and I were pregnant with our third child in 1993 and wanted to take our two children, son 7 and daughter 5, on a fun vacation before the baby came. Like many young families, we chose Disneyland. We paid the hefty price and had a long day of lines, rides, souvenirs, and sunburns. Our son was a towhead, blue eyes, and smart. My daughter was also blonde and blue-eyed, and a little shy. They were both well-behaved, and we all stayed close. The kids didn't go to the restrooms alone, on rides alone, or run around. As we were taking our leave at the end of the day, we were standing together not far from the exit. It was a bit crowded, and we were just hanging there for a minute, waiting to walk out. Since we were two parents and two kids, naturally there was always a certain amount of milling around or trading places. So I did a visual check every couple of minutes if I was actually physically hanging onto a kid. And then it happened. I checked. One daughter, no son. I scanned, and there, about 15 feet ahead of me walking towards the exit, is my son walking with the man who was holding his hand. I could not believe my eyes. I yelled out his name. My son stopped and turned around and saw me. Totally confused, he then looked up. At the same time, the man turned his head just slightly. A quick glance over his shoulder at me, then dropped my son's hand without stopping. He walked straight ahead and out of the gates. No running, no drama. Like it was all just a mistake. My son comes back to us and I chide him, exclaimed to my husband what just happened, and that was it. We all just stood there, but I knew exactly what had happened. After a day of hand-holding and close contact with my parents, my son automatically took a hand that came down and touched his. It happened so fast. Neither of us yelled out for help. Neither of us gave chase. I didn't report it. I didn't do anything except gather us up and get the hell out of there. It was surreal. I have no doubt that I would not have my son today had I just assumed my husband had hold of the kid that I did not, and had not kept checking. That comforts me, but I have never forgiven myself for not reporting it, and it haunts me to this day that he got away. Imagine the audacity of someone taking that chance, picking up the hand of a child who is standing right next to his parents. So Disneyland may seem to be a terrible place to try abducting a child, but it isn't, and I'm sure it's happened more than a few times, regardless of what Disneyland says. And it may seem suspicious that the author asked this question, but I don't find it so. I came to this question in the website Cura 25 years after this happened because every once in a while, I Google abductions in Disneyland in hopes of finding the man that tried abducting my child. I have yet to find the man online, but I hope one day I do. I'm just so happy that I have my child and that nothing bad happened to him. This one's been going around the internet for a while now, and most Disneyland regulars know about this one. Mr. One Way is supposedly a ghost that sits next to single riders on Space Mountain. He will seem like a regular single rider that sits next to you, may even have talked with you in line, but at the end of the ride, after the photo flash, there will be no one sitting next to you. In the summer of 1973, an 18-year-old man and his 10-year-old brother hid out in Disneyland Park past closing time by stowing away on Tom Sawyer's Island. They then decided to swim off the island across the rivers of America to avoid detection. The older brother pulled his younger brother along on his back through the river, but grew exhausted and drowned. His brother managed to stay afloat by dog paddling and was eventually rescued by park employees, but by then, his older brother was nowhere to be seen and was found dead the next morning. Occasionally, people sneakily scatter the ashes of loved ones at Disneyland, including at the Pirates of the Caribbean, where in 2007, a woman was seen pouring a powdery substance into the waters. The Haunted Mansion is another site where visitors have honored their loved ones by leaving ashes behind. In October of 2018, Disney staff from both parks confirmed to the Wall Street Journal that not only do people scatter their ashes at the park, but the practice is so popular that the maintenance staff has a code for it: HEPA cleanup, which refers to an air filter system that picks up ultrafine dust particles. The haunted mansion probably has so much human ashes in it that it's not even funny, one custodian told the publication. One time at Disneyland, I stayed until closing and I was walking through the gate from Adventureland towards the entrance. It was darker than usual. I think one of the lights had burned out. I dropped my popcorn bucket on the ground and it rolled into the water under the bridge. It was a limited edition bucket, so I couldn't just let it go. I got on my stomach on the bridge and reached out my arm to the water. I had almost reached the bucket when an arm popped out from the water and grabbed me. It was white and cold. I screamed and tried to pull my arm away, but I couldn't. I looked down into the water and saw a face. It was a woman with dark hair. Her mouth was open and she was screaming under the water, but I couldn't hear her. There were bubbles coming out of her mouth, and as they broke into the surface, I could smell the stench of decay lifting into the air. I took a deep breath and pulled my arms as hard as I could. I finally pulled away and stood on my feet. I was sweating through my clothes from terror. I started to run towards the exit, but something inside me made me look back. From afar, I looked at the dark water. It was still, and there was no sign of the violent struggle that took place only moments before. I looked at my arm. It was dry. I wiped a thick streak of sweat from my brow and wondered if any of it was real. Then I looked down and saw the popcorn bucket in my hands. I don't know how to explain what I just saw, but I'm just so glad that I got out of there, and especially glad that I got out of there with my limited edition bucket. Disney's Imagineers used real human bones to construct the scallywag skeletons when the attraction first opened in 1967. The fake bones looked, well, fake, so Imagineers procured real ones from UCLA's medical school. Eventually, they were replaced with phony ones. However, many believe that one or more skulls in the ride are still real. Hey everyone, thank you for sticking around and watching the video. If you have a personal story that you could send to me, you could send it to midnightgoosebumps@yahoo.com. I would love to eventually read it. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.